Welcome to Podcast Done For You, the show where we make it as easy as possible for you to make the right choices to advance your podcasting career. So let's get started on the show. How to build your sales funnel with potential clients doing all the work. Well, that is the topic of this episode of Podcast Done For You show. It's an unusual one in many respects because commonly you would say that podcasting is not about sales. Well, is it? We're going to uncover all of that in this episode of the show. Now, I want to invite you right from the outset, if you've got questions you want me to answer just like this one, then please feel free to send me a message. There are details in the show notes about how you can do that. Let's get into the topic because there is a lot to unpack in this particular idea. First of all, as I said from the outset, commonly you would say, and I've said it many times, that podcasting is not about direct sales, and it isn't. But that doesn't mean that it isn't a platform for sales. So here's an interesting idea that I want you to consider. Many of the people who are doing podcasts, like myself, we wear a number of hats. One of those hats is sales manager. Of course, there are many businesses that employ a sales manager, and this is ideal for both of you to listen to. So whether you are the sales manager, whether you are employing a sales manager, doesn't matter what role you fit in, this is the episode for you to have a listen to because I want to talk to you about a very simple idea. So sales, when you're building a funnel, is about first and foremost positioning you as an authority. Let's face it, before you can start building a relationship with someone, and that does come into the equation, of course, you need to make sure that you are positioned as an authority. Now, that doesn't mean immediately that people are going to like, know, and trust you and know who you are. It's a simple idea of understanding that you are in a position of authority. That is the start of the exercise. I'll give you a perfect example. When you go to buy a car and you walk into the car dealership, somebody walks up to you and introduces themselves as the car sales manager, then they're in a position of authority. Now, do you trust them at this point in time? No. You know who they are. You know that they represent the car maker that you're looking at, but that's all. So that's what I'm talking about initially. You need to be in that position of authority. So if you are wearing that hat of sales and you're introducing yourself as the sales manager or the owner of the business, whatever suits you, then tick, you are getting in that position of authority. But the next most important part is establishing a bit of education. You need to do that before you can fully build the relationship. Because walking over in that scenario we talked about and says, "Hi, I am the salesperson for this car place." Okay, that gives them a little bit of authority, but do they know anything? Well, if they start to tell you, this is the model that you're looking at the moment is actually our base model, but why don't you come over here and look at this model? I want to show you some of the things that it has that the other one doesn't have, and starts talking to you about that, then clearly there's an education process around the vehicle that is happening. So education is important part of the process. The next part of the process is building the relationship, of course, because as you start to educate, again, I'm using the car analogy, the next part is, tell me a little bit more about your family. Is this car just for you? Who's going to be driving it? How many people are in the family? Where do you use it commonly? Do you like to drive off-road? Are you only for city driving? All of those kinds of questions that actually build the relationship, that start to give an understanding from both sides as to the idea that they know more about the product that will suit you best. And that only happens by understanding what your situation is, and equally you being given information from the salesperson that is going to build that relationship as well, that says, I understand what you're looking for, and this is the kind of car that would suit you, or no, you're better off going over here because this is the one that is more suitable to your particular situation. So that is the relationship build. And ultimately it gets back to the position of authority that says, right, we've gone through all of this exercise, we've built the like, know, and trust, and now you're in a position to be able to buy from this authority. Well, we are the people that you want to buy from, and here, make the deal. All of those things happen in a normal process. It's pretty simple. We do it all the time in business. You're fairly used to that. Well, here's the thing, right? That the problem is at the moment that mostly the way you are reaching out to people is basic. If you don't have a podcast, it's basic. All you are doing is sending out ads, potentially writing newsletters. They're not really hearing you and your voice. And here's the other thing too, that you're straight away going into sales mode. This is the conflict that exists between sales and marketing, of course, because marketing is all about that building relationship and generating the leads, and the sales is about the conversion process. But what if marketing gave sales a platform that enabled them to build the relationship? Enter the podcast. Now, this is something that I don't think many people have considered properly, but it's happening every day in podcasts that are out there all over the place. It's just perhaps at a more sophisticated level. If you are putting your sales hat on, or indeed if you are the sales manager, this is the ideal opportunity. So let me walk you through an example of how this might work and why this is such a valuable tool. Imagine you are a sales manager. What do you want to do? You want to build relationships with new potential clients so that ultimately they'll buy from you. Well, the other problem you have is that you can pretty much do that one person at a time when it comes to building relationships. But the podcast flips that on its head. And not only does it flip it on its head, well, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. It actually gives you even more opportunities than you could possibly have any other way. But we'll come to that in a moment. If you are thinking about it, a podcast is an opportunity to talk to a large audience. You're talking to many with the idea that one person sitting there on the other side listening to you is thinking you are talking to me, and that's the whole idea. They feel like you're talking to one person when you in fact are really talking to many people. Okay, that's the concept of the podcast. It's also basically a way of giving you authentic content. So it's endearing you and the brand to your audience. Why is it a game changer? Well, what do most podcasts do? This one being an exception. I'm having a conversation with you and it's a one-on-one podcast, but most podcasts have a second person. Now, quite often, that person is a guest. I'm going to put aside the fact that for a moment, the co-hosting scenario, and you can check out my other videos about the value of having a co-host, and we might touch on that a little bit later on. But at the moment, what I want to talk to you about is the fact of bringing on a guest. So imagine if the guest that you are bringing onto your podcast is a potential client. Imagine playing into their ego. If you get in contact with someone who's a potential client, and normally you want to engage with them to start building the relationship in a way that is very obvious it's going down a sales path, you're going to get door shut, door open, just depends on where they're at. But what if you played into their ego a little bit more? What if you said to them, I'm really interested in what you have to say. I would like you to come onto my podcast. Now you're getting them to talk about their business. You're not talking about you. You're talking about their business, what they're good at. That gives them an opportunity to reach out to new people. It gives them content for free. What it does as well is it gets you into their network. Not just them, but it gets you into their network. That's the secret sauce I was telling you about a moment ago. You get them to come onto your podcast, and all of a sudden, once you've produced that podcast, they've got content they want to share with their network. So now their network knows about you, and these were people who didn't even know you a few minutes ago, virtually speaking. So you come from a position of authority, you play into their position of authority. You start to educate the audience about these people, and along the way, you're educating about you as well, because you're coming from a position of authority. Even as just a sales manager, you're coming from a position of authority and knowledge. You are educating. You are an expert in your space. You may not be the main expert in your business, but that doesn't matter. You've got the expertise to be representing the business, to understand what it can do for someone. That is being an expert. So here you are now having a conversation, education, going to the other side where you're building that relationship. It is much easier after you have been through a process of here's the content from the podcast to, hey, that was really interesting. I'm glad you enjoyed the experience of being on our podcast. I'd love to catch up for a coffee and get to know you better. Now into the sales conversation. How much more likely is that door to be open? Absolutely. But here's the thing that you don't want to miss that I just mentioned a moment or two ago. They've unlocked their whole network for you by virtue of you having them on your podcast. So now the sales conversation might not be for them, but who else do you know? Because they've got to know me by you sharing it. Or if they haven't seen it, say, hey, would you mind sharing the episode of the podcast? Or you just share it directly if you know who it is. You might be interested that we just had this person on. I'd be interested in your opinions. It is a great way to open up that sales funnel and completely change it. It's where marketing and sales meet for the first time. I don't think there's many places where that actually happens. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've actually seen situations where been in an organization where sales and marketing are almost at fisticuffs. Like they don't like each other. Everyone wants to blame one another. Well, here's the perfect thing. And this is coming from someone who has a background in marketing, have to do sales because, hey, I'm running my own business now, so I've had to do that. And this is the platform where those two things meet. Here I am. I'm having a conversation with you. You're listening to this at the moment. This is the relationship build. This is me educating you from a position of authority about the value of podcasting. Now we can have a conversation that can be a sales conversation, right? Check out the show notes below. Book in a time. Let's have a call. Doesn't have to be as obvious as that, by the way, when you do your podcast, because particularly if you're trying to get the guest as being the person that you're having the sales conversation with. But there's lots of materials and things that you can do it on. If you want to know more about the value of podcasts, well, why not check out the show notes and download the ebook? There's one from this show as well. There always is with every one of my episodes. You're also creating a whole lot of content that you're going to gift them. If you do it right, then what happens at the end of every podcast, and we do this for our clients, there's about 40 pieces of content per episode that gets given to my clients to be able to utilize on a bunch of different platforms, not just social media, but newsletters and websites and whole lots of different places. That's what you can do with it. And you can give that to your guest as well. So you make sure that they're going to share it, that they're going to not just open up their networks, but they're going to be publicizing you actively. It's genius. It's simple. If you want to open up your sales funnel to potential new clients and utilize those potential new clients to open up their networks, the podcast is absolutely the answer. Because if we talk about that, and I just want to reiterate that little wheel that we talked about at the beginning, which has authority, then it has education, and then on the other side has relationships. And that is a continuous circle. How does it work in a podcast? Well, the model is very simple. At least our model is. At the top, we start with promotion. That's right, we start with promotion. That's why, again, other episodes talking to this, but I come in as a co-host of the show so that we can promote you, elevate you as the expert. So all you have to do is show up and be the expert. Even when you bring a guest on the program, in fact, especially when you bring a guest on the program, we make sure you are still seen as the expert. We can ask the dumb questions. We can do all of those things to position you as well. So that happens. You've got the promotion at the start. Number two, sitting on the other side of our other little wheel here is very simple, where that's the production. You don't have to worry about that. Don't be overwhelmed by the idea of a podcast. If you've got this far into it and you're thinking, oh, a podcast's a great idea, but wow, there's a lot to do. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything. Do it right. You've got a production partner like Podcast Done For You. You just show up. We give you a link. You just show up. That's it. We'll do everything else. Then after you've got that, you've got the publishing part of it. Yes, you've got to publish the podcast, and it is about generating all of that content that we just spoke about to go back to the top where it gives you more of that promotion because you get to share it with everyone. And then we move on to the next one. These things work in great synergy to one another. Two wheels that are effectively doing the same thing that are enabling you to open up a whole new sales funnel. You're in it right now. You're watching this video. You're listening to this podcast episode. You're in it. Now, are you ready to buy from me now? You might be. You might not be. And that's okay. If you're not, there's more episodes of the podcast. I'd love you to listen to it. Like, share, subscribe, send us a comment. Do all of those things. Potentially, you might be ready at some point in the future, and that's okay. You might also open it up to other people by doing exactly what I've just said. There's lots of people in these networks of potential clients that open up doors for you. Heck, their competitors are listening to them. So if these people are not smart enough to jump on your bandwagon and you've had them on the show, you can bet your bottom dollar their competitors are going to be listening in and wanting to jump on that bandwagon as well. They're going to be thinking, hey, they might be in the market for this. We need to jump on before they do. That's the beauty of the podcast and speaking to many while still speaking to the individual. There's a lot to take in from this. I hope it's made sense to you. This is the ultimate tool for where sales and marketing not just meet, but where the marketing gives so many more opportunities and sneakily gets the sales conversation happening by working in synergy with one another. Put your sales manager on your podcast. Come talk to us at Podcast Done For You. We'll fix you up. We'll tell you how it all works. We'll make it work for you, tailor a program so that it suits you and get your podcast happening because, as I said, your competitors will be doing that. And if you want any evidence, all you have to do is go and look at the many, many podcasts that exist out there where business leaders who are in many respects the sales manager are doing exactly that. We take out all of the overwhelm. We make it easy as we can at Podcast Done For You. But regardless of whether you work with me or not, I hope you've got something out of this episode. As I said, we love your feedback. We hope that we can answer more of these questions in coming episodes of the show. All right, that's all for this episode of Podcast Done For You show. Open up those sales funnels. Look at those potential clients. Here we come.